since about the mid-60s. I take a metal plate and polish it. This is one that has not been polished. I polish it, clean off all the polishing compound, heat it up, and apply a ball of etching ground, which looks like brown wax. It consists of beeswax and roofing tar. Beeswax is clear but flexible. You could not see your drawing in it, and roofing tar is dark chocolate colored but brittle on its own. The two together make an etching ground that allows me to draw with an etching needle, which is a sharp stylus. So this ground would come off so easy. If you're not careful, you could scratch it with your fingernail. But you use a needle to draw. And I'm not gouging the metal. I am just removing the wax. So that's how I draw my etchings. I draw in this wax coating called a ground, hard ground actually. And I draw with a needle. I can paint out areas that I want to change with a straight roofing tar, asphaltum. Let it set up a little bit. If I let it dry, it becomes brittle and cracks off, but I can let it set up, redraw the area. It's a lot easier to make changes in the plate at that stage before you etch it. If you want to make changes in a plate after it's been in the acid, you would need to use these tools. These tools go back to the 17th century, 1600. Rembrandt made some of the first etchings. This is a scraper. It's used if I wanted to scrape out a line. I also use it to take off the edges of my plates. The scraper, however, makes a mark into the plate, and you would need to then use a burnisher and some oil to remove any mark from the plate that the scraper made. I also use it on the edges to take the edges off. And then it would need to be polished again. If I were removing an area and had used the scraper and then the burnisher, I would then need to use steel wool and polishing compound. So it's a lot easier if you want to make changes in your plate if you make it before you put it in the acid. When my drawing is complete, I paint out any mistakes, any scratches on the front or the back and the edges, and put it into a nitric, in the case of a zinc plate, a nitric acid solution. The acid dissolves the metal. The lines then come down beneath the surface of the plate and they hold the ink. The ink is thicker than honey. This is a simplified version. The truth of the matter, in etching the plate will go in and out of the acid 8 or 9 times, as some areas will etch faster. The chemical reaction happens faster. In this flower one, for example, anywhere you have a lot of lines together, like inside the picture here, or shadows on the roses, these areas will etch faster. You need to remove the plate from the acid, wash off the acid, dry it off, take your liquid tar, and paint out these areas so they don't cook too much, so to speak. What you want is a lot of lines that will hold a lot of ink, but if you leave it there too long, the little pieces of metal in between will lift out, and you will no longer have that. So you have to watch it carefully, bring it in and out of the acid a number of times, protect the areas that have cooked far enough so that other areas can catch up. And so your original drawing, which was in this wax coating on the metal plate, will be destroyed as you etch it, as you gradually tar out different areas. And then in the end, you take paint thinner and an old toothbrush and scrub all of this ground off of here, and you have an etching plate. My etching plates are never finished the first time in an acid bath. It's never happened. Some of them might be finished the second time. Some of them take 3 or 4 times. A large plate will take many times. And when I first print from the plate, it's called a proof. The etching ink is thicker than honey. It's scraped across with mat board scraps. The first layer is then taken off with a stiff piece of cloth called tarlatan cloth. It looks like starchy cheesecloth. And then the ink is removed from the edges, and then a hand wipe is done where I am taking off the remainder of the ink film. I'm not actually doing that now, I'm just kind of demonstrating. But you use a motion kind of like this, and it takes it off the shiny parts of the plate, but allows it to stay in the lines. If you wiped it like this, you would tend to wipe it out of the lines, but this takes it off the shiny parts. And it's actually a little painting in ink that I'm doing, because I want to take off the right amount. If you take off too much, it won't be the way you want it, but if you leave too much on, it'll be too much of a dark residue on there. However, when that's it in a finished plate. Let me show you some proofs how I progress to finish the plate. This is my finished sunflower print, which actually I drew right on the porch here last summer. And this is my first proof. So, when I proof or print a plate, I always do it that I'm trying to complete the work on. I always do 2 prints. One shows me what's actually in the metal, and I don't draw on this one at all, and then I label them. This one says, first proof, not drawn on. Then I take, this one was printed at the same time. I took a pen and ink, and I drew on here to see how I wanted to develop it. I decided I wanted more darkness in the center, the petals more delineated, and some leaves on it. But this is not in the metal. I put the ground back on this plate. I took my etching needle. I made additional drawing. I put it back in the acid with the tar and the whole bit, and then cleaned all that off after it was etched. And again, I printed twice. I label both of them. This says proof 2, not drawn on, a second etch. Now this is now in the metal. This was in the metal, this was in the metal. But I have made some additions on here. It's a little bit subtle. I don't know if your camera will pick it up. I've darkened some areas here, worked on this leaf a little bit. And I've done that on here with pen and ink. This is not in the metal. I then go back to my plate and work on it to do completion work. Completion work I do without acid, and this is called engraving, where I have a burin, and this tool goes back to the 17th century also. With the burin, you're actually, and I don't wear glasses when I do work on my plates, I'll put a few more shading dots in. You're actually removing the metal. You can cut a line, you can pop out little dots and do shaving, little shadings with it. So this is, I have burins of different sizes. The etching needle is only one size, but the burin is different sizes. And I'm here on these, I did some engraving to finish these. And I make notes on what I'm gonna do, and backwards. So these are actually in the metal, no drawing is on them. I draw on these with pen and ink. I make myself notes of what I want to improve upon, and then I come to the final one. So it's a sequential process. It's a fairly long process to complete a plate, and I'm actually making a printing plate, so that'll show up. And all my etchings in this edition, and I'll do an edition of 185, they will, each one will be individually hand printed. For instance, this is number 24 of 185 of sunflower, so they're all hand printed. You can maybe see the plate mark here, after it's been pressed into the paper. The press puts about 500 pounds per square inch. So I can afford to sell my etchings at a reasonable price, even though I have many hours in making this plate, because I'm making an edition of prints, 185, instead of just one if it were pen and ink. When the plate is inked, it would go down on the press bed, and a dampened piece of etching paper would go on top, and then it would be covered with the 3 blankets. Then to print it, it would be wound through the press like this, and the press would apply about 500 pounds of per square inch to the plate and the paper.